Welcome back to Jatai Academy. I'm Russell Mays, Director of Content. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive on how to cut some Bettie Page bangs. Now, the Bettie Page bangs is probably the most difficult bangs that you can cut because there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and if you got cowlicks and dips and flips and waves and hair that's too thick, so there's a lot of stuff that can happen. So I'm going to show you all the things that can go wrong and how to deal with each of them. So let's get started. So when I'm going to start cutting some bangs, I have to be mindful of what type of bang that I'm doing, how long it's going to be, and what the end result's going to be. So Bettie Page is always very, very blunt, very heavy, and curved up on the edges. And it's very thick, and it's a little bit broader than a standard bang. A standard, fringe is going to be from the front hairline, the first bump, to the center of the recession, which is going to be about that much. Hers is much thicker and it goes a little bit further back. So on her, for this type of bang, I'm going to go first bump to the second bump to the bottom of the recession, which is going to look something about like that. So I'll pin this hair out of the way. I can always add more later, but I can't take it out after I've already cut it. So I'll look at this and see, okay, does that look like that's going to be thick enough? And I think so. So I'll do the same thing on the other side. The bottom of the recession, right there to that point, pin that hair out of the way. Now we have the entirety of the bangs that we're going to cut in our Bettie Page shape. The next thing I have to pay attention to is if I'm going to cut it wet or if I'm going to cut it dry. If I cut it wet, then the hair has a tendency to spring, and I'll get more tension on it than I will if the hair's dry, because the hair stretches a little bit more when it's wet. So on hers, when I want to keep that very blunt, I'm going to go ahead and blow it dry. And when I blow it dry, I want to be mindful of how much I'm stretching it and how much I'm pulling it. So if they naturally have a really strong cowlick that's sticking straight up, there's no way that they're ever going to be able to style their hair. So I want to be conscientious of their styling ability and how much they can style their hair. So I'll go through with my Dubois brush and just kind of gently encourage everything to go flat against the head when I blow it dry. And I don't want to get so powerful with it that I get everything perfectly smooth and don't allow any of the natural cowlicks or hair movement get in the way. I want that to be in the way a little bit so that when I cut it, it fits in better with the natural growth patterns of the hair. Some hair cannot do Bettie Page bangs because they have a strong cowlick and you can't get past it. Next thing I'm going to go through, I'll take a center section right between the eyebrows. This is going to be the first section that I cut. If I'm nervous, I can go through, take this section in half, and start small and work my way up. That's okay. You don't have to do the whole section in one shot. So I'm going to start with my Jatai Kyoto Scissors. Now this is a little bit heavy. It's got a little bit more weight to the blade so that when I cut it, it gives me a more precise, solid cut so I can cut through dry hair and thicker sections much easier. The next thing I want to pay attention to is when I comb it, I comb everything straight down, flip my comb with zero tension, and then hold it. Now, if I hold it in my fingers, I'm going to cut the top layer slightly shorter than the underneath layer. So it's going to pop up with a little bit of graduation. We can fix that later. I'll go through, cut this straight across. Now you see how that started to spring up already. So that's another thing I have to pay attention to is when I'm combing my section, I don't want to grab the section with my fingers and stretch for dear life, because see how flat that gets? The hair next to it's already popping up. So when I let this go, boom, it's going to spring up. And when it springs up, I no longer have a solid blunt line. So I want zero tension when I comb this down. I comb it down right into my finger and then lay my finger on top of it where I want to cut. Find your guide underneath, go through, cut that. Now another thing that I want to pay attention to, I'm leaving this long, I'm going to cut this shorter. I'm just going through and showing you the motions. Another thing I want you to pay attention to is the scissor push. When I'm working with a thick section of hair and I put the blade in, you notice how the hair instantly starts to get pushed out of the blade. And that happens even on very, very sharp scissors, because these are very sharp, so I end up with a wavy line. So what I have to do is I have to cut. As the scissor starts to close, I pull back on my scissor. I cut on the back stroke. It looks like I'm going and cutting on the end stroke, when in reality, I'm cutting on the back stroke. Cutting on the back stroke will give you a much cleaner, more solid line. My preferred way of cutting really, really solid bangs: lift up with my scissor, comb down, cut on the back stroke, straight across. Then I can place my comb right there on the head to hold it and go through and clean up my line. Now we're starting to get a nice blunt, solid line without any kind of graduation. And that's the secret to her bangs, is it has to be very, very blunt. I think a little shorter, a little bit shorter. And that's another thing I want to pay attention and acknowledge, is that bangs can get very, very short very, very quickly. So it's better for me if I leave it a little longer initially and then go through and whittle it down. Because there's going to be sometimes the hair springs up. There's going to be sometimes the hair shifts. So I want to give myself a little bit of a safety net, as I start to whittle that down. Now I'm looking at that, knowing that as I go to the sides, this is going to go up. So I'm really just looking at that little piece right in the middle, and I think that that's probably pretty good. Now we're going to take the next sections, we're going to comb that straight down. I'm going to go through, lift this up, put my comb in at the angle that I want, and then roll the comb down and cut from the short to the long. Then I can go back and clean this up. Give us a thumbs up, click subscribe, and the notification bell to be notified of future Jatai Academy content. And I think we're beginning to start to see our shape. Now we can certainly exaggerate this a little more depending upon the hair that you have on your model, depending upon how extreme that she wants to go. You can go very, very short. And I think that we need a little shorter on the edges here. So I'll go back with no tension. The only tension I get is what my comb is holding there. And then I'm going to angle the comb as I bring this straight down. Take a little bit more off on the right side. Clean that up. Oh, I think that's looking better. Now there is a method of going through and cleaning this up where I will point cut in, because as I go in with my blade blunt, and I'm taking a pretty broad cut, pretty broad stroke of cut, the hair will tend to push, that we talked about just a minute ago. If I go through and just do little nibbles, there's exponentially less push, so I can fine tune that shape a little bit more and be a little more precise without having to deal with scissor push. All right. So we've got our short piece and our short piece. So I'm going to go through and try to guess at what angle that this is going to be on this side to match the other side, and cut that and hope I don't cut too short. Oh, it's actually not bad. Now, don't look at my big gash right here, but this part where I'm cutting to is actually pretty even. So now we're going to go through, clean this line up. I find cutting short to long I can be more precise than cutting long to short. And also trying not to take one big, strong, broad stroke of the scissor, but taking smaller strokes, or even going through and point cutting that will make that easier to deal with the scissor push. That's not bad. I'm gonna cut this a little bit through here. There we go. Follow us on your favorite social media at Jatai Feather. So here's our end result, and let's cover a few key pointers when we're trying to cut really blunt and around the bangs on an angle. So first thing, no tension. The more tension that you introduce, the more it's going to spring and the more it's going to shift. Secondly is combing it clean from the roots all the way to the ends, using the comb to plant and hold, zero tension. Cut on the back stroke. So as the scissor starts to cut, it's going to push hair. So cut on the back stroke, or go through, point cut, and that way you'll have less scissor push. When you're combing it down for this angle, as it starts to angle up on the sides, I'm still combing it down in natural fall, just angling my fingers or angling the comb, and then that's going to introduce the angle that I start to bevel up on the edges. So also, last thing, be patient. Takes a long time. So be comfortable, be patient, have them close their eyes. You don't want them looking at you, you know, as you're trying to cut their bangs. It's kind of unnerving, but this is a very iconic style for a reason. And a lot of people don't wear it because it's very difficult to do. So if you practice on a doll head and you get the doll head right, any human should be right as long as they don't have some big cowlick in the front. So check out the Jatai Academy. There's all kinds of fantastic information on there that will make you a better hairstylist and barber. Let us know what you'd like to see in the future. If you have any questions, leave them below, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.